Hi guys, this is David. Do you want to become an advanced user in Microsoft Excel? If so, this training is just for you. I'm going to break out the creation of a dashboard into 3 videos, and this is video number 1. In the first part, I'm going to explain what the dashboard is and all of the features that we're going to cover through the training. We're going to gather our data from the web, and then we will manipulate and transform the data to make it usable in order to create our dashboard. So again, what I'm showing on my screen right now is what we will get at the end of the training. A dashboard, nicely formatted and fully dynamic. The topic is world population, quite easy to understand. You can see a chart, you can see rankings, insights put within like sentences, so as you can read and understand the data, cascading drop-down menus, a spin control, a checkbox, a macro, and a fully dynamic data table. So as I make selection, let's say Americas and Northern America, it's only displaying the data based on my selections without showing any empty cells. And because I've made selections on the region and subregions, and they are displayed here, if I want to hide the last 2 columns, I can make it so by using the checkbox. So fully dynamic and just one click to reset all of my selections, just like that. So what are we going to learn? Creating a chart, obviously, doing rankings, using form controls, whether it's a spin control or a checkbox. We're going to learn like how to create a button with a macro assigned to it, cascading drop-down menus, conditional like formatting, plenty of functions to get like our data to work for us, and we're going to retrieve the data from the web using Power Query. Definitely an advanced level, and at the end of this training, you will be way more knowledgeable and able to do some very cool stuff using Microsoft Excel. So, of course, it starts by reviewing our data. So I'm going to switch to the web, and the data is located on Wikipedia, the site that is known by most people with plenty of good information that we can use for free. So the page is displaying the list of countries by population as provided by the United Nations. And it looks like I have exactly the data that I want. By country, I have 2 points in time, population in 2022 and population in 2023, a column to show the change from one year to the next, and then the region and the sub-region. So it looks quite good. But first, we need to identify any potential issue with our data. And the first one that I'm noticing is with the headers. I can see special characters like parentheses, names that to me are not ideal because they are too long. So I know that I probably need to rename my headers. Small change, but still a change. The next thing I'm noticing is that the first record is actually not a country. It's the world. It's an aggregation of all countries in the world, obviously. But does it really belong to my data table? Probably not. And also because it's the world, there is obviously no region and sub-region. So I will want to filter it out when transforming my data set. So let me scroll down. Let's see if there is any other issue that I can identify. So far, so good. Scrolling down. Almost at the end, I'm at the end, and yes, there is an issue with Vatican City. Even though there is data populated for 2022 and 2023, the change column does not display a percentage, like of change. Instead, is showing as NA. Not sure why, but it has two consequences. First of all, there is no percentage. I don't have a value, so I have a missing value for one of my record. That's a problem. Second problem is that when Excel will retrieve the data from the web, it will also try to identify the data format for each column. And because there is one cell that will contain text, because NA is recognized as text, Excel will think, therefore, that my change column is text, not a value. So second issue. And that means I cannot rely on that change column, which is okay. We'll be able to create our own because we have the data for the 2 years, and we can create our own change column. So now I know that I have data from the web, but it needs some tweaks to make it work. So now let's go back to Excel and let's open a new workbook. And let's think about how we want to set up our file. Obviously, we want to place our data somewhere. So that's going to be on the Data tab. So calling the current tab Data. Ultimately, we want to have a dashboard, and we don't want to mix the data and the dashboard. So I'm going to add a second tab and call it Dashboard. And last but not least, because we have to transform the data from the Data tab in order to display it on the Dashboard tab, there is still some transformation needed. And for that, I like to add a third tab where I can place my formulas. And therefore, I'm going to add a new tab and call it Config, short for configuration. All right, so now we have our three tabs. I'm going back to the Data tab. And now we need to retrieve the data from the web. And doing so in Excel is now extremely easy. On the Excel ribbon, let's go to the Data tab. And to the left, you'll see an option to get data from the web. And it reads, it imports data from a web page, which is exactly what we want to do. So I'm going to click on the button. And I have this pop-up window asking for two things, whether I want to use the basic wizard or the advanced wizard. For what we want to do, the basic wizard is plenty enough. So I'm going to keep it as basic. And of course, I need to provide the link to the page, the URL. So let's go back to my web page. Let's copy the URL. Let's go back to Excel and paste my link. Clicking on OK. And the next step may take a minute or two. Why? Oh, that was actually extremely fast. It looks like the connection to the web page was successful and fast, but it might take like a few seconds or again minutes, depending on the Wikipedia server, depending on your internet connection, depending on your computer. So different variables. But ultimately, what Excel did in the few seconds, it went to the web page and analyzed the HTML code to retrieve everything located in tables that could be sent to Excel. And it looks like, in my case, 3 tables are retrievable. And by selecting a table in the list, it provides a preview. So I can see whether it is the data that I want or not. So selecting document, obviously it doesn't look like, it's my list of countries with my population numbers. So that's not it. If I select table 1, still not it. Not sure exactly what that is, but hopefully that second table is what I want. So let's click on it. Yes, it is like the data that we reviewed a few minutes ago. And it's my list of countries. I can see all of my fields. I can scroll down. and it's giving me, again, a preview of the data. And on top of the changes that we talked about more like earlier, I'm noticing that there is a new issue because that first line in my data table is just my headers being like duplicated. So that is again something that I will have to address while transforming my data. And as we talked about, it is displaying null for the region and the subregion for the world. So confirming that I definitely need to transform my data. If my data was perfect and I did not need to make any change, I could simply click on load and it would put my data, pretty much pasting it into my Excel workbook. But again, we have identified quite a few things to fix. And therefore, we're not going to load, we're going to click on transform data. Immediately, there is a new window opening on my computer, and that is the Power Query Editor. If it's the first time for you seeing Power Query and the Power Query Editor, and you're wondering what it is simply the best thing that Microsoft has added to Excel in the last few years. Why? First, because obviously it allows you to transform your data. But even more importantly, it's recording the steps so as you can perform them again in just one click moving forward. Pretty much like a macro, but even easier because you can interact with your data, telling Power Query what to do, and in the background, Power Query will generate the code to replicate it moving forward. So in the middle of the screen, obviously, you can see the data as a data preview, and usually it will give you a preview of the first 1,000 rows of your data set. In our case, we have less than 1,000 rows, so it's displaying the entire data set. And on the right side, you'll see the applied steps. So it looks like Power Query already created a few steps. The source, which is obviously the link that we provided, navigation. No, we don't need to worry about it like too much. And again, it even tried to identify the data type for each field. And you can see it like in the formula, no, like here, or you can see the format next to each field name. And obviously, we see that we have no like an issue with the data type because location of country, yes, should be text, but the population should not be. And that's because that first row of data is not a value, but just no like the header. So that's why Excel thought that it was text. So it applied the text format to my two population field. And again, to the change because of that header here, but also because of the NA for Vatican City. And you can see also like the null values for world. So now, first, we need to remove that step, that change type, because obviously the fact that it converted like population to text is not okay. So I need to remove that step, and you can see the cross right in front of the step. By clicking on it, it will delete it. So now what do we need to do first? We need to fix that first row because it's just a duplication of headers. So actually, as a matter of fact, I need to do one thing first. No, I need to change the name of my table before I forget, because right now the name that's assigned is extremely long, and I do not want that in my formula. So I'm going to call it my data. Okay. If you're editing the name, everything becomes like grayed out. That means you cannot click on anything. So once you're done editing the name, just go back and click on your table, and now you see everything becomes available again. And where I have my cursor now reads used first row as headers, which is exactly what we need to do. So let me click on use first row as headers, and as I click on it, take a look at what's happening in my table. It fixed my issue. So now that first row that had my headers being duplicated is gone. And now on my applied steps, I have like two new steps: promoted headers, which is what we just do, and then change type. But now, because I do not have a problem with the headers for my population, it says, oh, it looks like population really should be a number. So it converted population to numbers. Because I still have an issue for Vatican City showing NA, it did not change my change like column. So we're gonna have like next to remove that change column. To do so, we're gonna click on the change column. We're gonna make a right click on it, and we are going to choose remove. Now it's gone, and there's a new step: remove columns. Next, we still have that record for the world. Again, not ideal. So we're going to have to filter it out. Let's go to the location field. Let's open the menu. And just like you would in Excel, we're going to uncheck world to filter it out, pressing on OK. And now it's gone. And it added, of course, a new step. We are almost there for a Power Query. The last step is to rename the headers. I'm not a big fan of calling countries location, so I'm going to make a right click on my field. I'm going to choose rename and call my field country. Same thing for the next field, rename, and I'm going to call it population 2022 without parentheses, much better. Next field will be population 2023. Next field will be renamed region. And the last field will be renamed subregion. And I'm going to change the lowercase r to uppercase R so as it's easy to read. So country, population 2022, population 2023, region, sub-region. Now that our data set looks good, we need to bring it to our Excel workbook. And two options when you click on Close and Load. There is Close and Load and Close and Load 2. So because we created a tab called Data to receive our data, we want to pick the second option. If we did not have a tab already, by clicking on Close and Load, it will automatically create a new tab called My Data, because that's the name of our data set, and it would put the data there. But again, we already created a tab called Data, so that's where we want to place our data, and I'm going to choose Close and Load 2. And now I have a new window. I am in Excel, and it's asking me where I want my data to be located and how. Yes, I want it as a table. And I want it not in a new worksheet, but an existing worksheet. I'm going to remove what's currently showing, making sure that I am on the Data tab and selecting cell A1. So cell A1 on the Data tab. Clicking on OK. It's processing my data, and within 2 seconds now, it retrieved my data from the web. It applied all the different steps, and it put my data on my data tab. And that's why it is also formatted as a table, because that was my choice. I wanted my data to be formatted as table. Why? Because we are not completely done adding like data for our dashboard. We are missing obviously the change column. And as I explained at the beginning of this training, we also want to have like rankings and even like a percentage like of cumulated like data. So we're going to add those fields. And doing so is extremely easy when your data is already formatted as table. So how does it work? in cell F1, so right next to the end of my table, I'm going to create the change field. So typing change, pressing enter, and automatically you notice that the format has changed. My table now has a new field because Excel understood that I wanted to add a new field. So change, I want to have two columns dedicated to my rankings, uh, ranking for the top increase, ranking for the top decreases. So I'm going to name the first one rank top, the next one rank bottom, and last a column for percentage accumulated. All right. Obviously now in F2 I need to insert formulas. And again, because I am within a table, I only need to enter the formulas in the first row, and automatically Excel will drag the formulas all the way down for me. And it will do so regardless of my number of records. So it is extremely easy and very dynamic. So for the change, obviously, I need to enter the formula that will reflect a percentage of change. So the formula is equals, and that's the difference between the population in 2023 minus the population in 2022 divided by the population in 2022. Now you will notice in the formula bar that it's not showing regular references because you would have expected probably C2 minus B2 divided by B2. But instead, it's showing like at population 23 minus at population 2022 divided at population 2022 because we are working within a table and therefore the references are different. It's going to be based on whether it's a record or the entire field and fields. And fields are edited within brackets. That's why you have like brackets, and at means that specific like row where you are. If I did not have the arrow sign and just population 2023 within brackets, that would be the entire field. So now let's press enter. And just like I said, it applied the formula all the way down. Next, we have the ranking, the first ranking column, the rank top. We're going to use the formula called ranked.eq. What is the number that I want to rank? That's going to be my change. So here, so at change, that's what I want. What I want to compare it to, well, I want to compare it to my entire like change column. So remember, brackets, change, closing the brackets. And now, do I want descending or ascending? I want descending. So from the top all the way down. So descending, 0, closing parentheses. And now I have my values. Obviously, the next formula is going to be very similar. So I'm going to copy it and in H2 paste it. The only difference is now instead of having descending order, I want ascending order from smallest to highest. Pressing enter. And last percentage cumulated. And this one is going to be a mix of table references and regular range references. Equals, and that's going to be the sum of, and for my first row, it's going to be the sum of C2, my population 2023, and that's it. But then for the next cell, it should be the sum of C2 plus C3. So the beginning of my range is always going to be the same, C2, but the end of my range is going to change like row by row. So it's C2, and then column C2. But on the first reference, I need to freeze the row. So using the dollar sign to freeze. So that's my sum. Divided by what? Well, by the sum of my entire, like column. So sum, and then of course my column, which is the change field, closing parenthesis, pressing enter. And I made a mistake. So what did I do wrong? Yes, because I use like C2, which is population 23, but it's not the change. Like column is obviously uh, my population in 2023. My bad. All right, so now pressing enter, and automatically, it updated, like all of my cells, and because it's a percentage cumulated, all the way down, the last value should display 1. Yes, there you go. So now I know that my formula is right. So we were able to troubleshoot, and it was an issue with the field that I first used, which was the wrong one. I put no change first when actually my first sum was calculating based on column C, which is the population 2023. And now we are pretty much done with our dataset. We are ready to start using the dataset to build our dashboard. So it's a perfect timing to take a break and to end this first video. And in the next video, we will resume where we are now, and we will start building the dashboard. So I will see you guys in the next video.